Hi, guys. My name is Shane, and I'm here to help you learn some English and hopefully relax while doing it. Maybe you've had a real stressful day, and I hope that we can have a great time together. Today's topic, we're going to discuss my wife's country, which is the Philippines in Southeast Asia. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about my day. So this morning I taught around four students. One of my students was a young boy, and every time I asked him a question, he would just give me a simple yes or no response. It was kind of funny and yeah, very interesting. I had then a student from China, and he was talking about something extremely interesting about self parking cars and electric cars in China. Here in Canada, we don't have that many electric cars. Maybe if I go out every day, I might see one, maybe two Teslas. But I was amazed to learn that there's so many different brands of electric cars in China. They have their own home-based brands or their country brands, and he was telling me about again the self-parking ability, and he was talking about how he saw some videos, hopefully they're real, where these self-driving cars could park themselves in a parking lot, and the owner of the car might just get out of the car and start shopping already, and then let their car park but themselves by itself. I found that quite unbelievable. And he said that he saw one video where a couple cars were competing for a parking spot. It's almost like a battle of AI, kind of, if we can say. So that was a very interesting discussion I had. And then I had another couple students. We talked about various things, including hiking and traveling, and also life in Canada. We discussed about immigration, the immigration process in Canada. There's a lot of growth in the immigration here in this country. I think most of the increase of our population is because of immigrants. And, well, it's a good thing that we have workers here. And even my own wife is an immigrant. So let's talk about her a little bit. Maybe you wonder where I met her. So I'll tell you. Why not? Actually, I had a Filipino Canadian friend who I grew up with when we were younger, and he wanted to go back and visit his home country when we were around 19. So I decided to get the money from my parents, and we went to Manila, which is the capital city of the Philippines, and also Cebu, which is kind of like the second city of that country. And my wife is from Cebu, and I met her at a friend's party. We were all gathered together there, and I thought she was really beautiful. So I went up and asked her for, I think it was her email address, and she gave it to me. I didn't hear from her for a long time, and then somehow, I guess through social media, she got my Canadian phone number, and she was able to contact me. So I'm grateful for that. And then I moved over there. We got to know each other a bit more, and we decided to get married. It was around 2013 when we got married. So let's talk a little bit about her country. The Philippines is often called the Pearl of the Orient. So, do you know what a pearl is? It's like those things that sometimes, well, mostly women, but sometimes men wear around their neck. It's like a little sphere. I think it comes from inside of a clam, a shellfish. And it's called, the Philippines is the Pearl of the Orient. Of course, Orient means the East or Oriental. Of course, we know the Philippines is in Asia, and it's particularly, as I said, in Southeast Asia. What makes this island nation so unique? So today we're going to talk about its geography, its culture, a little bit about history, and then also its modern identity. Have any of you ever traveled to Southeast Asia? I know Thailand is very popular, Vietnam as well, Indonesia, especially Bali, is a well known island that a lot of people go to. Southeast Asia has a lot of islands, and that's what makes that nation or those nations so unique because people, were in different islands for a long period of time. They developed their own regional languages, and that's what makes the culture so fascinating. So, first, we're going to look at just 10 words that is going to be in today's article that I will read to you. So, before we read it, let's review. The first word we have is archipelago. That's archipelago. An archipelago is a group or a chain of islands, and the Philippines is like this. It's an island country, Indonesia as well, and various other countries. I think even the Bahamas in North America, in the Caribbean, is an archipelago. Next word, biodiversity. Biodiversity. That's the variety of plants, animals, and life in a region. So let's say, for example, we could say Brazil, the Amazon rainforest has a lot of biodiversity. The next word is colonizers. That's colonizers. Who are they? Where they are people or groups who take control of another piece of land or another country. We've had a lot of colonizers through history, the British, the French, even I think the Dutch and Spanish, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. What about dominant? Do you know dominant? So dominant means the strongest or most important or most noticeable thing. So we could say, for instance, the most dominant animal in Africa is a lion, the most powerful. Okay. Next is multilingualism. Multilingual, see, even me, I have a hard time sometimes. Multilingualism. Multilingualism. And that means a place that speaks several languages. And a lot of big cities in the world are multilingual. And multilingualism is a trend that's increasing around the world. Next word, number 6, is regional diversity. Regional diversity. That's differences in traditions, languages, and customs across regions. So, a lot of countries have this as well. Different places, different cultures within their own nation. Next word is hospitality. That's hospitality. It means being generous and friendly towards guests. A lot of people say that almost every country in the world likes to say that they are the most hospitable, and that means that they like to have foreigners or guests into their house. Give them drink, give them food, and show them a good time. So that's what hospitable means. The next word, number 8, is resilience. Resilience. And this talks about the ability to recover quickly from hardship. So let's say you go through a natural disaster and then you get through it. Well, that's your resilience. Number 9, inequality. Inequality. This is the unfair differences in wealth or opportunities between groups. As an example, the rich and the poor. The gap. Okay. Next word is in motion. It's 2 words actually. Something is in motion. It means something is moving or changing and not staying the same. So before we begin our article, I'm just going to take a little drink, if you don't mind. And the title of our article is The Philippines, Islands of Culture and Resilience. Look for the words that we just studied. The Philippines is an archipelago of more than 7,600 islands in Southeast Asia. With its tropical climate, beautiful beaches, and rich biodiversity, it has become known worldwide as a place of natural beauty. Yet beyond the scenery, the Philippines has a culture shaped by centuries of history, blending influences from Asia, Europe, and America? Interesting, hey? The earliest societies in the Philippines were Austronesian peoples who lived in small communities and traded widely across the region. In the 16th century, Spanish colonizers arrived, bringing Christianity, which remains the country's dominant religion today. Over 3 centuries of Spanish rule left a deep mark on Filipino culture, from food and architecture to festivals and family traditions. Later, the Philippines came under American control, introducing English, modern education, and new political systems. This layered history explains why the Philippines is often described as both Asian and Western at the same time. One of the Philippines' most striking features is its multilingualism. While Filipino and English are the official languages, there are more than 170 languages spoken across the islands. This linguistic variety reflects the country's regional diversity. Cebu, Ilocos, Mindanao, and other areas each have distinct traditions, foods, and music. Filipino culture is often defined by close family ties and community spirit. Hospitality is central. Guests are treated warmly, often with food and generosity. Festivals or fiestas are another highlight. Whether celebrating a patron saint of Catholicism, a harvest, or local histories, fiestas fill towns with parades, music, dancing, and colorful costumes. At the same time, the Philippines faces challenges. Typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions test the resilience of communities. Economic inequality and political struggles also shape daily life. Yet Filipinos are often described as resilient and optimistic or positive, finding strength in family, faith, and community during difficult times. Today, the Philippines is a country in motion. Millions of Filipinos live abroad, working and sending support back home, while Filipino music, food, and films reach audiences worldwide. From dishes like adobo and lumpia to world famous singers and athletes, the Philippines is making its presence felt globally. So, what is the Philippines in conclusion? It is a country of many islands and many identities. It is a story of resilience, faith, and joy. It is a place where tradition and modern life come together in unexpected ways. I hope you enjoyed listening to that article. It's very interesting to talk about the Philippines for me. As you know, my wife is a Filipino, so I really love this topic. So let's talk about stereotypes about the Philippines. Um, I guess a lot of people think that Filipinos they might know them as workers, especially in the Middle East. Like Dubai has a lot of Filipinos. I think Kuwait and Saudi Arabia has so many of them as well. I think Israel too. And also the Western nations, of course, like Australia, Canada, the US, have a huge Filipino population. So, because a lot of them come from a country where maybe their degrees are not recognized, I believe a lot of them tend to take up jobs or start jobs that are kind of entry level. So a lot of people assume that all of them have entry level jobs, but it's not always true. I know a lot of Filipino friends who some of them worked at universities as professors, even in North America. So they do a lot of different jobs. I think it's just a stereotype that all Filipinos work in simple jobs. But hey, I have a simple job and I love it. So nothing wrong with a simple job, right? Have you ever tried Filipino food? That's an interesting one. What is Philippines food? So I always tell my students and friends that it's like a combination of the Austronesian, which is the native Filipinos. They're very similar to the Malaysians and Indonesians, and they all look quite similar, to be honest. When my wife and I went to Malaysia for the first time, she was amazed how similar everybody looks to her. So their food has this influence. It also has a Spanish influence because, as we talked about, it was ruled by Spain for over 300 years. And then we didn't mention it in the article, but Japan ruled the Philippines too in World War II for an amount of time. And then we had the USA. That's the fourth country. Yes, the fourth nation to influence this place. So the U.S. gave them my favorite foods, for example, spaghetti, fried chicken, hamburgers. I know it's unhealthy, but I'm Canadian. I love it. I try not to eat it every day, but what can you do? So the most famous dishes, we talked about it in the article, is adobo. It comes from a Spanish verb that basically, I think it means to marinate something. If you're from Spain, please forgive me if I'm wrong. Um, but it's basically chicken or pork or even a vegetable or fish that is cooked with, I think, four basic elements. The first one is soy sauce, which is very Chinese. There's also the Chinese influence on the Philippines. I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention China influenced the cuisine drastically. So they got the soy sauce in the adobo, they got vinegar, black pepper, and bay leaf, which is like a leaf that is used in a lot of Western food actually to flavor a soup. I think it's used in Spain a lot. Maybe that's where they got the idea from. I'm not sure, but I think it's highly possible. Now, adobo is really good. It's usually eaten with rice. You can't talk about the Philippines without talking about rice. They eat rice like my wife's family 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, nonstop. If I remember, I tried to give some of my friends a hamburger for dinner, and they just thought it's a snack. It's not actually a meal because there's no rice. I think the Philippines actually they eat so much of it that they have to take rice from other countries to import it from other countries. Uh, Another famous dish from my wife's city is called lechon, and lechon, I think it's a Spanish word that might mean milk or something close, because it's like the young pig that would still be feeding on its mother, the mother's milk. And this is a pig that is cooked. It's the whole pig roasted on fire. And at first, I was really scared to eat such a thing because it's you don't see, I mean, such a big animal on a table in Canada. But after a while, I really, really, really enjoyed it. I think it's delicious. They also do lechon in other parts of the Philippines. I know they do it with tuna, and also with cows, because also we remember a large part of the Philippines in the south is actually Muslim, just like Indonesia or Malaysia. So they aren't eating much pork at all. In fact, they don't. So that's a very interesting point. I should mention too that Cebu is like the food is very different from Manila. Adobo is very popular in Manila, while in my wife's city in Cebu, they call something adobo, but it's completely different in my opinion. It's almost like a fried piece of meat. There's no sauce or anything. So not only do they speak different languages, every island has almost a different dialect, but they eat different foods too. So it's like when you travel to different islands, it's like traveling almost to like a different mini country. It's quite awesome. Have you ever heard of an OFW? That's an OFW. Well, this is an abbreviation for Overseas Filipino Workers, and it's a very common phrase used in the Philippines to talk about the Filipinos who work in a different place. So there are a lot of OFWs in Canada, and so much so, I mean, there's OFWs who opened restaurants in my city, and they are exposing locals to Philippines food. Um, some of them actually sell like something similar to Chinese restaurants, which I'm sure makes us a little bit confused as to what the food is. But I would say that the Philippines food is usually quite different from Chinese food, except for the Chinese Filipino dishes. Like they have this lumpia, which is like a spring roll, which is wrapped meat, and they deep fry it, and it's really crispy and delicious. And they also eat something called pancit, which is a noodle, and it's quite good. Sorry, I'm talking about food again. Of course, we all love food. We all love to eat, don't we? Next is the concept of resilience. We talked about that again in the article and how it shows in Filipino communities. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I think it was 2022. We had one of the worst typhoons, or, it's like a hurricane in Asia. It's called typhoon. In the history of the Philippines, it was one of the worst. And I think it was around a category 5 or higher, over 200 kilometer per hour winds. And it was a little unexpected because the storm happened so quickly. So it took half of the roof off of my rented house. I was renting a house in a small community, and my wife's family, most of them came over, and we went through the storm together. It was around from 8 p.m. until midnight, and it just destroyed a lot of things in the city. I think 500 people died. Very serious. The electricity went. Gas stations ran out of gas. Water places where you could buy a jug of water, they ran out of water. It was a pretty bad situation. Excuse me. So the interesting thing is, I noticed that if that happened in Canada, I'm not speaking negative about us Canadians, but I think we are very emotional and we don't have a lot of um, natural disasters exactly in Canada. So if we experienced such a thing, I think most of us would be shocked, crying, depressed, really, really finding it hard. But the amazing thing about the Filipinos is that I just couldn't believe it. It's like everyone was just kind of normal after it happened. I can't explain it, but they I think they're just so used to, they have, they're on the what we call a fault line, which is where the earth has a crack, where the earthquakes happen, right? Like in Japan, Indonesia, the western part of North America, the US. Um, so they live on one of these fault lines. A lot of earthquakes, a lot of typhoons. They have volcanoes. They have so many natural disasters. Um, so I think they're in a way used to it, and it doesn't affect them as much as it would someone like myself. So I found that quite amazing to observe. So if you ever go to the Philippines, I want to give you a bucket list. If you don't know what a bucket list is, it's like a plan that you could what's another word for it? A plan that you have of things that you want to do in your life, or if you visit a country. I would recommend definitely the beaches. Absolutely fantastic. There's one beach in my wife's island. It's called Moal Boal. That's Moalboal. And that's great. You can swim and see sea turtles in the ocean. You can see sardines, which are these little fish, and you can hire a boat to take you out to do that. I think it's only for around 50 Canadian dollars, which is like around, I guess, 40 US dollars in 2025. So that's amazing. I recommend it. Also, I recommend the historical cities like Cebu. They have some really old architecture. Manila does as well. They have kind of a square. It's a kind of a walled city. It's called Intramuros. That's Intramuros. You can Google it, and that's where the Spanish used to stay inside. The Spanish army, I guess. They tried to protect themselves. They used to fight with the Chinese and with the Filipinos. It was a little bit of a bloody history. And of course, the natural things, the natural wonders that they have, like they have um, wonderful waterfalls. It's absolutely fantastic. There's one waterfall in my wife's city or island. I'm gonna try to get the spelling here for you. Oh yes, it's called Kawasan Falls. Kawasan. Kawasan Falls. Amazing. And you can go through the waterfall if you want to with a guide. They can take you and push you along. It's just really fun. I didn't do that though. I am not so adventurous with that. So, to recap, we talked about the history, we talked about the culture, and we talked about the diversity of the Philippines. So, let's go to just a few discussion questions just to get my real opinion, and I'll be very honest about this. Here's a question. Why do you think family and community are so important in the Philippines? Yes, this is a very good question. My wife loves her family so much, and I don't know if it's mostly an Asian cultural thing, but the family, I think they call it collectivism. Collectivism, which is where there's not an individual person, but like the family is like a working unit, almost like everyone is working together. And I found that extremely difficult to understand when I first moved there. Because, in North America, we are just ourselves. We're taught to be independent and to take care of ourselves and to move out of our parents' house when we turn around 17, 18, 19 years old. So I found the collectivism idea very difficult to get used to. I still sometimes do. But I think Filipinos are like that because of the disasters that they had in their country. They had to rely on someone to get through it, to live. So they love each other, they support each other, they feed each other. It's just amazing. I wish sometimes that my own family was like that, but we're different. That's the uniqueness of the human family. So let's try another question here. The article says that the Philippines is both Asian and Western at the same time. What do I think this means? Another great question. I think I got to tell you, the happiest moment I had when going to the Philippines was knowing that McDonald's was everywhere. I was so happy about that. They have another restaurant. It's called Jollibee. It's like the Philippine version of McDonald's. They sell mainly fried chicken and this very interesting spaghetti dish. So they have a lot of Western influences. I know a lot of countries have McDonald's, but I think McDonald's has been in the Philippines for a rather long amount of time, and Western food has as well. I think ever since World War II, when the American soldiers, I think the Philippines was actually a part of America before World War II. Excuse me. So even before the the war, people were used to American things and the English language. So they have, interestingly, all street signs, all businesses, all documents that you get at a government office. Everything is in English. It's so easy for a native English speaker, or for maybe you, if you want to go and practice your English. A great country to do that. Like, I highly recommend it. Um, that kind of scares me about countries like Thailand, uh, or maybe other places where there's a lot of Thai language. I guess they have English translations now, but I think the Philippines is great. It could be great for you. So that's what I mean by being Asian and Western. The mind is very is very Asian. Like, as I said, they really talk about family. They really are close with families, and they really also respect older people. Like, they really can't say no to what an old person says. You really have to respect the elderly. That's big, a huge thing I had to get used to. And the sometimes the roads. Sometimes I see a lot of people. They like to have American cars, like Ford. It's like a sign of luxury. Very interesting how it's a mixture of both places, but it has a very unique identity that you can understand if you travel there. So that's all for today, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast and that it helped you to relax a little bit on the end of a busy day. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.